Hello, hello, and welcome to a new episode of the Restricted View podcast.
Welcome back, everybody.
I am Deborah.
I'm Chris.
And today we have a great show for you, jam-packed, again, with lots of interesting tidbits.
Absolutely, yeah. We've got our first review.
Ooh,
because we've actually managed to see a show.
We have been to the theatre, yay!
You are now listening to post-show seeing Chris and Deborah.
Yes, very excited. We decided to record this just a few hours after seeing the show because, we just got very excited about being back at the theatre.
Yeah, have to keep it fresh in our minds.
Exactly.
We won't go too much into detail on this particular show about the general experience of going back to the theatre. We are also going to Theatre UC tonight to see a different production in another theatre, obviously. And so next week we're planning on doing that. We're going to do that. We're going to talk you through kind of the experience of going within the current semi-lockdown.
Opening up situation. Yes. Today we also have some exciting news.
Mm-hmm. Very exciting news,
yes.
particularly for us.
Yes. And I guess one of our great tips, and we'll introduce ourselves a little bit as well. We'll talk a little bit about how our love for the theatre has developed.
Yeah, exactly. We give you a very brief introduction to us as people in theatre goers last week, but we were actually dedicated a section to it. Our Far Too Many Notes section this week is actually going to be dedicated just to help you guys get to know us. We'll talk about, as Deborah said, our journey getting into the theatre, and I suppose what's led us to start recording this podcast.
Yeah, let's get cracking.
Let's crack on. So on to the news of the week. Slightly more breaking news than usual, because it is it only was released last week or so. And you may remember last week we mentioned in our Far Too Many Notes section, we're talking about theatre during lockdown and the arts during lockdown. We mentioned that one of the things that really helped us was Mischief Movie Night In from Mischief Theatre. Well, it's back, baby.
Yay! Yes, we are very excited to announce, obviously not our announcement, I guess, but we're very excited
We're going to re-announce
that Mischief Movie Night In is back, but also not just from your sofa. If you want to go see them live, you can. And this is just great. I didn't think they'll be back this year with the improv show, because I know that a lot of the main cast are going back to doing magic.
Yeah, but that's not opening till September, October,
exactly.
I think.
So from the 1st of July till the 1st of August, I believe most of the original cast of the movie night in, of the improv show, are going to be doing improv again. This time,
the whole Mischief crew has done the improv show.
Yeah, I think people sometimes come
great.
and go. They're all wonderful. And this time, you'll be able to watch it from your house, anywhere, like wherever you are in the world. But if you are lucky enough to be in London, you can also go to the London Riverside studios to see them, which is great fun.
Close to Hammersmith for those of you who take the tube to get there.
Yes. And we have tickets for the first night and the last night, which is super fun. But there's lots of exciting things happening. So on the 18th of July, they're doing a sequel Sunday. So the two shows that day will be a sequel to each other. Obviously, always taking advice from the audience. Not advice, but the suggestions of the audience with title and setting.
Characters
and even characters,
awards the film might have won.
Exactly.
All sorts of things.
And on the 31st of July, which is the day before they close.
Sorry, that was my pen dropping.
Subtle. On the 31st of July, they're doing a trilogy day, so they'll have 3 shows and they'll be all linked. So that's exciting. We don't have tickets for that, but we might get them.
Yeah, well, what we did, what we did last time was sometimes we just randomly thought, we've nothing to watch tonight, and it's nearly 8:00. Let's watch Mischief Movie Night In.
Yeah.
Because what they're doing is essentially three types of tickets, right? There's for £10 you just get a streaming access to your household or to a device. I think it's only one device. So no matter how many people in your household, for £10 you can stream it to your television. The whole family can sit around and enjoy the improv show. For £15, and these tickets sell very quickly. There are still some left for certain dates at time of recording. For that £15, you get this participation ticket. So exactly the same as the previous ones, but you get a short meet and greet beforehand with Oscar
or Amy
or what was it?
Emmy.
Emmy, was that what it was called?
Yeah.
So usually played by Jonathan Sayer.
Yes.
But could be played by any of the other wonderful cast members. And you also then get to be part of the people who make the suggestions.
Oh, and also vote for the
And
suggestions
vote,
you
yes.
want to see enacted by the group.
But if you don't buy the participation tickets, you can still get involved with certain types of suggestions, because anyone can tweet on Twitter. They usually ask people to tweet things like awards it could have won, most interesting cameos, or that kind of thing.
I think they check Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for suggestions.
Yeah,
so
they'll
asking for
tell you
suggestions, and you can suggest what you like. But you can also go live. They're very limited tickets. There are some tickets available at this time. At time of recording, we still have tickets available. We checked. So yes.
To actually go and see it live.
Yes, exactly.
And they cost £25.
Which is a good price, especially because it'll be really quiet. I think it'll be nice. I don't think you'll have a bad view from anywhere you sit.
No, I don't think so. They're not doing reserved seating, so they're clearly not concerned about people not being able to see. And also, I think it's going to add a huge thing, even just for people who watch from home, because the fact that there'll be a live element to it with a live audience reacting
definitely.
and laughing and guffawing is going to, I think, somewhat elevate the experience of watching it from your sofa as well.
Yeah, it probably helps the actors as well to know what's landing well and what isn't.
Absolutely.
And when to move on or not. So I'll be excited to see it. We had such a great time watching them back in February and in January this year. So it'll be nice to see them live again.
We even saw it live in December.
We did, yes.
When theaters very briefly
before
reopened.
everything shut down for ages.
yeah. But that's so we're so excited. And if you come along to the first or last performance, you'll even see us in the audience.
Yeah, come and say hi. If you can tell what we look like.
That's very obvious. My laugh projects throughout theatres.
It's the Jimmy Carr of laughs.
Yeah,
it is a bit. less high pitched, I'd say.
Yeah, I certainly have a loud and obvious laugh. But yeah, so Mischief Movie Night in or not so in is back.
Yes.
Get excited. So on to one of our main sections from the Cheap Seats. This is very exciting from the Cheap Seats edition because it's our first review. As we said, we have actually gone and seen a show in the West End, and it was The Mousetrap
by Agatha Christie.
At St.
Queen of Crime.
At St. Martin's Theatre. I had never seen it.
Yes, and I saw it 10 years ago. So it was a long time. I remembered who done it, but I didn't remember how they got there. Who has done this?
Anyone who watches Brooklyn Nine-Nine may remember Captain Raymond Holt saying the phrase "who done it" is a grammatical abomination. I shall use the correct phrase. Who has done this?
So I remember who has done this or who had done this, but still had a great time. I think it still kind of stood the test of time. Obviously, seeing it 10 years ago, I didn't have as much experience going to the theatre, so it was a kind of a different experience seeing it this time. Also, being the first show we're seeing after lockdown, so it's just different for so many reasons, isn't it?
I mean, the whole experience going to theatre was very exciting once again, which is great because that's the one thing I always lament slightly about going to theatre as often as we do, is it doesn't have quite the sense of occasion it did when I was younger.
That's true.
Which is sad, but you know, you can't have your cake and eat it, I suppose.
That's true.
But I want to say I had always wanted to see The Mousetrap. I always intended on seeing it, but obviously it's been running for almost 70 years. I felt I'll get around to it, and this seemed like a really good time to get around to it because there's very little open at the moment.
Yeah, it's just one of those things, isn't it? That you don't really go to touristy spots in your hometown or where you live. Because you think, they're there, I can just go whenever.
Yeah.
And The Mousetrap felt very much like that. I can just go whenever because it's always going to be there.
Yeah, although one day maybe it won't be.
One day maybe it won't. But it has been there for 69 years, since October 1952.
Yeah.
So it opened with the Queen, kind of rising to the throne.
Oh yes, exactly.
It's going on to its kind of
1952, is that?
52, yeah.
52, yeah.
Yeah, she was crowned.
Quick maths.
I just said that.
Oh, sorry. But we saw the 28,210th production.
I made Chris say it because I can't say numbers.
28,210th production. So they've had lots of practice.
Well, not this cast necessarily.
Yeah, I actually found out Richard Attenborough actually was in the original cast.
Which is insane if you think about it. And I was actually just when we found that out, I said, "Oh, maybe he played like the Major or something." Because when you know someone
You
as
think
an
of him
old
as
man,
old.
you always think of them as an old man. But he was 29 and he played Giles. Yeah.
No, he played.
he played the detective
sergeant.
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, so on to the review of sorts. This will be kind of a discursive review because that's our format. But so first and foremost, I didn't know the story, and I did not conclusively work out who done it before the end of the show, before the complete end of the show. I've had not just you, not just Deborah, but I have had some people say to me, "Oh, it's quite an obvious one." It's and I disagree. I think there's plenty of hints. There's plenty of red herrings. It does that thing. Well, that's our cat in the background. You'll get attention soon. It does that thing where everyone's a little bit dodgy, right? I don't know if anyone's played a murder mystery dinner party game, but in those, every character is like an absolute scum of the earth. Now, it's not like that. The characters aren't all scum, but it uses the same. But every character's a little bit dodgy. Has done some, several of them will have done something nefarious in the past. And at least even the ones who are completely innocent, through some contrivance or another, they will look guilty.
They're all wary of the police as well. Nobody wants the police to be mentioned. Everyone's a bit like, oh, why are they coming here? What? Even if they are innocent. And just picking up on what you said, that you've heard people, not just me, saying that it's a little bit obvious. Mm-hmm. I think this is because, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think this is because you've heard this from people who are very familiar with Agatha Christie.
Yeah, possibly.
In her novels and her other works. And if you've read Agatha Christie, you'll know how complicated and complex and quite cheeky she gets when she does her reveals and her twists. So it kind of feels very straightforward in that sense, because it's we won't spoil it. But I think that's probably why. And if you then remember A Witness for the Prosecution, which we saw a few years ago, there's a lot. It feels more complex, more complicated. But
Witness does.
Yeah, Witness does.
Definitely,
yes,
certainly.
But this one is just very classic murder mystery, and I feel that it's just.
But with alter, it's not as classic as I was led to believe.
Oh, okay.
I don't think so, and unfortunately, that's an element I cannot talk about with because the cast asked us at the end of the show, asked us personally, as is tradition. The cast asked the audience to be their partners in crime and not reveal the secrets, and we most certainly will not do so, which does limit somewhat what we can talk about. But I do not agree that it is completely textbook murder mystery.
Not textbook necessarily, but maybe because, look, it's been there for 69 years, so maybe it's made its way beyond the stage, right? I think it's referenced everywhere, so I think in many ways that's why it kind of just became. It is a classic of the genre, even though it twists certain aspects of it. But yes, I'm glad. I was very glad that you didn't figure it out straight away. And having seen it again now, like 10 years later,
from straight away, I went.
Well, you didn't. Yeah,
I went through multiple. I went through multiple ideas.
Yeah, you were taken by the story. So as the story took your hand and kind of guided you towards seeing what it wanted you to see. Once I think it's interesting. It's always fun to see something like this, knowing the ending.
Yeah, I'd be quite interested.
Because you spot certain things that just kind of become obvious. Not that this does it a lot, because Agatha Christie is very good at hiding it. But yes,
we can I think we should circle back maybe to the elements of the plot we can talk about.
Of course, yeah.
But I just want to leap off of something you said, which was she's quite Agatha Christie. Yeah, excuse me. Agatha Christie's quite cheeky. You mentioned, and I thought that immediately. My very first note is dialogue was surprisingly modern and quippy.
Oh, and she is.
Which is obviously that's a that's kind of a classic mistake, isn't it? To be like, oh, we're so people. We're so modern. People back in the 60s were so unmodern. This is 50s actually, right? Sorry, but it's we all young people think we invented everything, Yeah. But I was amazed by how how contemporary the dialogue felt. Now, an element of that will be obviously acting choices and directing choices, but still, it didn't feel like it was written in the 50s.
No, I think her books kind of feel the same way as well. There are some elements that sometimes kind of just
Betray the time.
The time they were written in, and maybe certain sentences and things, especially about foreigners, that would not make the cut today.
Yeah. I see what you mean. Yeah. Sure.
But I do think that a lot of the time for Agatha Christie, look, I haven't studied her in depth or anything. I just read her I'm just a reader of her novels. I do think that she was kind of aware of her times, aware of what was happening, and that kind of leads into her novels in an interesting way. And even though she might have characters, often like the proper British characters, bad mouthing foreigners, she has created a Belgium detective.
And she also has.
She clearly likes them, and I think she plays with stereotypes.
Yeah, I mean, the Mousetrap has a Italian character making constant fun of the English.
Yeah, so I think she plays with stereotypes of these other countries. I think maybe she had the freedom to do that. Some of that stuff probably wouldn't work nowadays, but it's of its time. We can't be too harsh on her, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, the play opens with the radio actually kind of foreshadowing the plot with by giving a news broadcast of a death. Of a murder, in fact, and then the character and the very first thing that happens is a visual gag where the first character into stage is wearing exactly what's been described on the
exactly
broadcast.
what whoever the police are looking for was wearing.
And
so it's just like the dark overcoat, light scarf, and felt hat.
She's got great comedic timing, taking everything off as it's been mentioned,
and that's done a few times, which is
there's a few callbacks to that. But that's the very first thing. Even immediately the very first thing that happens in the show is dead silence, followed by the murmur of a radio. A single character enters, and then the audience, this babble of laughter as she's taking off her coat and hat. And immediately I was like, surprised. It sounds crazy almost to be surprised that the very first thing that happened in this 50s play was a amusing visual gag, but it was surprising. You know, and it was pleasantly so.
We forget that Agatha Christie wrote over decades.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we often associate her with...
She was born in the 19th century.
Yeah, we always associate her with the 20s, but she was writing up to the 70s. So she has kind of covered a range of social changes and kind of artistic changes as well. Mm-hmm. Of how kind of the arts moved on and progressed. Yeah. So it's interesting to see those things. Yeah,
and that stays throughout. The dialogue is very clever. It's very entertaining, and it's very. I mean, it's a play of realism as opposed to naturalism. It's very fine difference, which I don't fully understand myself. But basically, the way I understand it is kind of. Realism is essentially, for lack of a better purpose, trying to present the situation realistically in terms of its costumes, which it does, in terms of character motivations. Even with naturalism takes it that extra step where it goes into the psychology of why characters are doing what they're doing. Dialogue is natural to the point that it eliminates any kind of unnecessary exposition or floweriness. Yeah. So it's not like that, right? The first thing I noticed about the dialogue is that it is all the dialogue is exposition-y and it's delivered as such.
Sure.
It's like I'm going to now give my speech, which is going to tell you very important information. To the audience.
Yes, but at the same time, it kind of works because those people don't know each other, so they are there's
a heightened sense of performance. Yeah, but that even exists between the husband and wife.
Yes,
right?
Sure, but they don't know each other that well.
That's just an immediate thing that happens in my brain. Then when I watch the show, I'm like, okay, we're in this mode. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah,
which is fine.
It works.
I'm personally a big fan of naturalistic dialogue. I think I'm somewhat on my own to a certain extent with the large theatre going public, because there's enormous problems with naturalistic dialogue as well, i.e. it can be very boring.
Also, if we want things to not make sense, we'll just have life.
No, quite. I thought so. I mean, all the dialogue is incredibly carefully picked for plot progression. There's no there's no dialogue that isn't kind of crucial to the plot.
Yeah.
Which is the benefit of kind of not doing naturalistic
Yeah,
dialogue.
it's very kind of like quick and upbeat, and not upbeat in the sense that is happy, but just kind of like the all the rhythms and everything, and it just kind of happens very quickly, and one after the other. There's no time for you to think, and I think that's quite clever because you don't want to be thinking
or
too much.
Or if there is time to think, it's very deliberate.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
It all takes place in one room.
Yes.
And it's a very, very detailed and well-designed set, which really immediately kind of sets the tone. And the curtain comes up, and you're like, "Ooh, this is... Oh, I can see a part of scene happening here. You know,
yeah.
I can see a detective explaining how the case went down in this very room." And that kind of feeds into the kind of realistic style it's going for. There is, however, despite it taking place in one room, there is a lot of other important space. There's a lot of other rooms which you slowly through dialogue and mostly through dialogue, but also through actions, learn what rooms are where, and where you learn where other offstage rooms are in relation to each other, even though you never see those rooms. Mm-hmm. And there is a very deliberate painting of space.
I think Agatha Christie is very good at that, because I think her novels have a lot of that. Because obviously, when you're reading a novel, you can't see things, and very rarely you'll find a map.
Yeah,
she kind of tells you where things are, and you have to remember as a reader and then as the audience in the play that this bedroom is next to the other bedroom and that the library is at the back. You know, like you have to keep that in mind, otherwise you could get a little bit lost.
Yeah, and there's an element of mystery still kept about exactly where you could get to from where, and there's a reveal at one point. This isn't a spoiler. There's a reveal. There's a piece of new information about a room that leads somewhere that, you know, like, but you could have gotten out this way. You know, I just found the presentation of offstage space quite interesting. Mm-hmm. It was something I was thinking about the whole time. It's something I used to try and work out who could have been where. Yeah. I just thought the whole use of space was super interesting, considering only one room is ever depicted on stage, mm-hmm. which I really, really enjoyed. The cast is of 8, which I think is a good number.
Yeah.
I think it works quite well. Although I did find it very hard to remember all the names.
Yes, that's just because I think that's just because Agatha Christie, and we don't really focus on their first names. We all focus on surnames. Sometimes it's harder to remember surnames because they're just less usual. Mm-hmm. So I think that's probably one of the reasons. But you do know who they are, and they do have characters of their own. They do have, like, you know, they do have their roles to play. I think that's very clear.
Yeah, no, definitely. Right. I mean, I think some characters stand out more than others.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
There's definitely, I mean, there's one character in particular I thought really was kind of almost devoid of personality, whose name I can't remember. It's the lady who arrives in the suit.
Oh, Leslie.
Yeah, I just felt she doesn't really, in most scenes she's in, she doesn't really present any kind of personality.
I don't know if I agree with you. I don't know. She's kind of presenting the young woman who is very free and kind of dresses kind of a bit like androgynous. There's a lot of that in Agatha Christie.
Maybe that's lost to a modern audience because she shows up in a suit, and then the next morning is wearing kind of a much more.
She's wearing trousers, and
in the second.
Yes, she's wearing trousers.
She's wearing a dress.
No, and
a skirt rather.
And that's obviously for us ridiculous. We wear trousers all the time, but it was still a big deal, and I think it's a deliberate choice. I think she looks both kind of European and kind of modern in with the fashions and with the times of when, you know, of the setting of the play, but also a little bit rebellious, as in she doesn't fit in.
Well, I don't think the actress portrayed rebellion at all.
Okay.
I think she was quite flat in her delivery a lot of the time. I think that's part of what led me to believe that that character didn't really have much of a personality. Definitely my least favorite performance.
Okay.
I just found the performance a little bit flat. But in fairness, she was juxtaposed to the character of whose name I do remember, because it is quite an easy one to remember, of Christopher Wren, played by Joshua Griffin, who I couldn't really find anything about. He doesn't seem to have done a whole lot. He seems to be recently out of theatre training, and I really enjoyed his performance.
He was very, very good, and he played the character really well. And just the name of the character gives things away, so I won't talk too much about it.
It's a fun character.
It is a very interesting character.
And
he played it very different as well from what I remembered.
I wondered that. I could see that character being played a lot more straight-laced.
I think there's many ways. I think the actor can kind of have a bit of fun with that.
Yeah, and he did.
And he did. He definitely did, yeah.
But I loved his choices. I thought he was really very physical, and which is funny because it's not a physical show at all, really. I know, obviously, this is 100% not a spoiler. There is obviously a murder. It's a murder mystery.
Yes.
But apart from the fact that there's a murder, which obviously requires some level of physicality. It's mostly, like I said, it's very dialogue heavy. It's mostly standing and talking, or sitting and talking, or standing and talking, walking a short distance, and then sitting and talking. But he was very physical.
He was very physical.
And it really added.
Looking at him because he was very physical.
And I think that was super important. Actually, I think if you removed his performance entirely, or if you played that character a different way, I think there would have been a huge lack of visual interest, and I think there would have been a huge lack of just juxtaposition between the behaviors of all different characters.
Yeah.
I think he added an energy that was super important to maintain my interest completely throughout.
That's a big compliment.
To a certain extent, I think he carried the show.
Oh wow! Okay, because I was gonna say that I thought it was very much kind of an ensemble show.
Oh no! It is. Sorry, when I say carry the show, that's probably That's probably the wrong term to use, because people say that when a show's bad and one character saves it, or one actor saves it. I think it is definitely an ensemble piece, but he's like the coaster on this. Let's keep
he brings
the coaster
the
under
chaos.
Yeah.
He brings the
exactly.
The unpredictable element to it, I guess, because all the other characters are your traditional murder mystery characters. You have the wife, and you have the husband, and you have a major who we don't really know where he came from.
Almost stereotypical.
Yes, and I think that's why it's so classic, and so you also have like the old lady who is not is always complaining, doesn't make friends with people very easily, gets a bit bullied as well. I think he brings the the wild factor in to the show.
Yeah, and like I think you kind of nailed on the head there. He brings something that only his character brings, or at least in his portrayal of it does, and that's why I think he's so crucial. I think it's not that the show would fall apart without him. It's just that if you removed one of the other characters, then I think that the dynamic of the group wouldn't change so much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, actually, the thing is, the elderly woman, Mrs. Boyle, I think her name was.
Mrs. Boyle.
She brings quite an important. She's obviously quite different. She's a bit of a Margot Ledbetter. She's nothing satisfying her. She kind of just likes all the other guests. You'd miss her as well, but in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
In a different way. Look, they all bring something. The more I think about it, but I just loved his explosive energy, and I think the show that this production we saw would have been sorely lacking without it. So I'll definitely be keeping an eye out for Joshua Griffin. I think his name is. Yeah, Joshua Griffin.
Yeah.
I will keep an eye out for.
Hopefully, we'll be seeing him
future.
again.
I hope so.
I was very surprised by, you were talking about like the setting and everything and how well done it is. Mm-hmm. And I was very surprised by the tension I felt, even though I knew who had done it.
Who has done this?
Even though I knew it. Especially towards the end of the first act and the beginning of the second act, I felt quite tense. Not because you don't really know what's going to happen. And I had, again, saw it 10 years ago. I didn't really remember it that much apart from, the culprit. And it was, I don't know, that was fun. And I think you brought back...
Did you remember who the victim was?
No, I did not remember who the victim was. No. So that was all very fun to not really know what was going to happen, even though I knew who was going to do it.
Yeah.
I love reading these type of novels. Agatha Christie. I've been reading Agatha Christie since I was about 13. So it's just good fun to see that on stage. It's always fun, and I think this play does it really well.
Yeah, I mean, the only other experience I have with Agatha Christie, apart from seeing I've seen the odd adaptation, movie adaptation. I've seen Witness to Prosecution, but yeah, it felt very classic, as you say. But yeah, classical is probably the word. Classical and charming, I think. which definitely has its limitations as a result, because it is what it is, and it is no more. But
it doesn't. I don't think it intends to be more.
Absolutely not.
It intends to be what it is, and
hey,
it's entertaining.
Hamilton wasn't a thing when this was written.
No.
Just briefly going through kind of the elements that we said, we'd circle back to the plot a little bit.
Yeah.
Just briefly what we can say, and just my thoughts on the plot. I think I've touched on a lot of this already, I think, but I think it has a very good setup, as I mentioned, the opening, and it does take its time. The first act, it's kind of 3 acts, right? This the first half of the show before the interval has a brief curtain down where they reset the scene. So I see it as a 3-act piece. The first act just introduces the characters, it lays some foreshadowing. Act 2 kind of lets us get to know the characters a bit better. We also start seeing different pairings of the characters,
yes,
and how they interact with each other, how they're different with certain people to other people. I really enjoyed those strange pairings off. A lot of Act 2 is just these 2 characters will talk and one of them will leave, and now a third person will come on, and the first character and third character will now talk, and the first person comes on, and a fourth character comes on, and the third and the fourth now people now interact. I really liked that.
And that's when the tension starts building.
That's the tension's building, because it's between the characters, right?
Yeah. Because you know that one of them is likely to be the murderer.
Yeah, exactly.
So you know that you're seeing the murderer talk to them.
At some point, you're seeing the murderer on stage.
Yeah, exactly.
With
and like,
people.
who is it? You just kind of have to keep your eyes peeled to try and figure it out.
And all the while that's happening, we get to enjoy Christie's witty and amusing dialogue, which surprised me, as I said, how witty and amusing it was. Which is kind of, to a certain extent, has smatterings of clues, red herrings.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Interesting observations. At one point, Christopher Wren talks about how artists work and how artists see people, which was kind of foreshadowing, but also just really just a kind of true. It's just true the way it's just kind of an interesting observation from Miss Christie. Then Act 3 kind of focuses on, and then Act 2 kind of climaxes with a big moment, which is very well built up to,
yes,
and very well executed,
and it's so tense,
visually, auditorily.
And, yes, I think it's not a spoiler to say that the show is kind of in the show, and the murders kind of happen around this idea of the 3 blind mice.
Oh yes, yeah. Well, the show was originally called 3 blind mice.
Exactly. And there's a lot of the tune being played throughout the show, so much so that for me, I have not grown up in this country, but I still could not stop. Like, the song was stuck in my head.
Yeah, definitely. Act 3 then kind of focuses on the mystery itself, right? And this is where the show stagnates a little bit for me, because what they start doing is the sergeant, the police officer in charge of the investigation, he then starts pairing off with basically having one-on-one sort of interrogations, so just questioning sessions. He has several with the group as well, but when which I found perfectly fine, but when he kind of then starts talking with individuals, it's kind of just, it's mostly repetitive circular dialogue that we as the audience don't really have any insight on. There's no real use of dramatic irony where the audience knows something that the characters don't. I don't think there's any dramatic irony really at all in the whole show, actually. And so as a result, we're kind of just waiting for some new concrete information. He's like, "Where were you when the murder happened?" "Oh, I was here." "Oh, that's interesting. You could have gone up these stairs and down those stairs." "Yeah, I could have, but I didn't."
Yeah,
and as the audience, we're going, "Yeah, he could have." But he says he didn't. Do I believe him? I don't know. It's like I mean, you're an actor, therefore you're lying all the time. So it's like it just kind of gets a bit, I don't know. We're basically at that point, we're following a police investigation with no dramatic irony, and you either need, and for that to work, you either need dramatic irony so we can have that voyeuristic enjoyment of being like, "Haha, I know something you don't know. Oh my god, he doesn't know that he could have gone up the stairs because the we don't have that, and then we also are not being fed enough concrete information to work stuff out." So for me, that third act really kind of, there's a good 15-minute chunk where it's not really as compelling, because it is just kind of depicting the investigation for the sake of depicting the investigation.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much I agree with you. I understand what you're saying, and I think it does make sense, and it does kind of like get a bit slower, and it's just a bit, quieter for 15 minutes or so. But I think Agatha Christie seems to do that. I well, look, maybe I'm stupid. If you read Agatha Christie and you know who did it, just let me know, because I never managed to figure it out in any of her novels. So I think that's just what she does. Like, it gives you enough information to keep you guessing, but not enough for you to actually figure out who the culprit is. And it's almost like it's bringing you into the investigation, but it's also not laying everything out in front of you. I think that happens. I think maybe that's easier to swallow, let's say, with Poirot and Miss Marple, who are characters you love. So you'll see those characters interrogating other not Miss Marple very much, but Poirot, you see him interrogating characters, and you are in it for him.
Yeah,
almost.
I understand that.
So maybe it's easier.
This is just a random, as
random
far as I know,
yeah.
one-off detective character.
Yeah. So so I think if you know that the detective is more fun, it's a bit like, if you see Holmes talking to someone, you'll find it more interesting than you seeing a random person.
But I do think it's the problem with the play, not because I actually thought the actor, I think the actor playing the sergeant was actually really good.
Yeah, he was very good.
I actually liked him, and I found him doing his investigation as compelling as I could find it. But I just don't think it's a particularly entertaining moment of the play.
Yeah, it might be. It might just be something with the script that doesn't make it as just as compelling.
Yeah,
as seeing Poirot being super sassy.
I'd say it's because there's no dramatic irony and there's not enough information for us to start going. And I guess the idea is that, the detective even says at one point, one of you is lying, basically, and we're supposed to be listening to their accounts of where they were and what they were doing,
and trying to figure it out.
Which of these stories can't be true.
Yeah.
And there are definitely some characters where I was able to go, it can't be you because X, Y, and Z. It could be you because this and that. That story sounds a bit convenient or dodgy. There's definitely an element of that going on.
And the thing is, a lot of people could be lying.
Yeah.
But only one person be the murderer.
Yeah.
Because people lie for other reasons, not just because of murder. So there's a lot in there.
But despite it I feel, despite it going off a bit, getting a bit less interesting at that point, I still felt it had a satisfying resolution.
Yes.
And I also like they kind of mirror in a way, as I said, that there's a slow visual and auditory build up to the end of Act 2, to the event itself, and that there's a similar kind of mirroring build up to the revelation of who the culprit is, which I found very, very exciting. And they do allow you to kind of have that moment of, wait a minute, what the before it's actually revealed, there's a soft reveal.
Yes.
There's a soft reveal before the hard reveal, which is actually really quite well done. And
yes, because if you're not paying close attention, you might just miss it.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree. And also I think in true Christie style, she doesn't leave any leaf unturned. So she does kind of like, she puts all the dots on the I's kind of thing. She like, oh, this character dropped something at the beginning of the first act. We'll know what that was about. He put something away. That something is revealed at the end. Everything is brought back. You don't leave the theatre with questions regarding the actions of the characters.
Yeah.
You might have questions regarding their motivation, but I think that's just that's just analysing the script.
So yeah, I mean, overall, I felt it's a good but not brilliant mystery. The mystery itself is good but not great.
That's fair, I think.
Yeah, but the show is still good. But it's kind of it is hard to say how early one could reasonably guess the culprit. But the reveal is definitely it's gradual, it's well paced, and it's satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
But just not up to the standards of, for example, Witness to the Prosecution, or my personal all-time favourite murder mystery series is Jonathan Creek, and I think the mysteries in Jonathan Creek are brilliant. It's just not quite up to those standards, right? And as a whole, the play isn't as good as Witness to the Prosecution, but it's a very different kind of play. It's much like we saw Witness to the Prosecution in a county hall, right? It's a very different feel to this kind of just pure piece of realistic theatre with just a wall missing. Kind of super class, as I said, classical and charming feel with its very simple staging. Very dialogue heavy scenes, as I said. It's all kind of done through dialogue, apart from the physicality of the Christopher Wren character. It's almost the easy listening of theatre. I
think that's fair and enjoyable, even though it's easy to go see. kind of it's still enjoyable. You'll still have a good night out, and I'm glad you enjoyed it because I knew, like, you have seen A Witness for the Prosecution, which I agree it's a superior play. It's a superier mystery.
And
the
it
mystery
stayed with me because the one thing I would say about the Mousetrap is it's classical, it's charming, it's a very very it is the easy listening of theatre, but that means whilst you'll have a very pleasant time watching it, it won't stay with you.
But you remember who done it.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I remember what I had for breakfast this morning. The breakfast hasn't stayed with me.
I will not go into further detail about what his breakfast is.
That's not what I meant. But you know what I mean, right?
Yeah. I really enjoyed it. I think I enjoyed it more than the first time.
Good.
Maybe because it was going back to the theatre. Maybe that was
the cast are probably excited for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, the cast was like the cast were excited. I think it was the first performance of that cast.
It might have been, yeah, because we saw the.
We saw it on a Tuesday, and we saw the second, second group of people doing it.
Yeah, it must have been then.
I think it was their first performance,
That's
unless
awesome.
they did Sunday. I don't know. But it was a lot of fun. I really love Agatha Christie. Like, I came home like I need more Agatha Christie books to read or reread because I really enjoy her style and her cleverness and her witty comments. And I was glad you also managed to enjoy, even though you've seen better stuff that she's done. So I was glad that effect was there and that you didn't guess who did it.
No, I did not know
who had done this.
So yeah, please let us know what you think of the Mousetrap. If you head over to our Instagram page, you can find the episode photograph. Yes. Please do comment and let us know what you thought of the Mousetrap. Obviously, do not spoil who done it. We're all partners in crime together.
And we basically, I think, we forgot, we never said, we definitely recommend going to see it. I
think we haven't decided we haven't decided if we're doing star reviews or what we're doing.
No, we're not doing star reviews.
Okay.
Not yet, anyway. But I definitely recommend it. Yes, you should go see it. Yeah, I think.
I agree.
Especially now when things are going back, it just feels like classic theatre, and it's classic fun as well.
Yeah, if you've never seen, I don't think it's worth necessarily going back to if you've already seen it. But
I went back to it, and I enjoyed it.
Okay, yeah, it's true. Actually, Deborah's in a much better position to give that opinion than I am.
If you haven't seen it for a long time, maybe it's a good time to go back because they're all very excited. The audiences are excited. It's just there's a nice feeling in the room. You can see that everyone's just very happy to be back.
Yeah, thumbs up. You should see it.
Yes, go see it. So this week's tip has actually everything to do with this week's review, and that is that the Mousetrap are currently doing a special deal.
Yeah, so this is a very time-specific tip. Time-specific, show-specific.
If you listen to this in the far future, I'm sorry. There might be other deals then.
Yeah, most of our tips are less specific than this, but this week felt this was too good not to mention. So basically, what we did to go to the Mousetrap and sit in the stalls in the second row, in excellent seats for a good price, was we used the Whodunit 50% off code. So if you go to the Mousetrap's website, order your tickets or put the tickets in your basket. If you enter the code Whodunit, all one word, WHODUNNIT. That's Whiskey Hotel Oscar Delta Uniform November India Tango. You will get 50% off. We bought two £50 tickets and paid £50 for both tickets.
Yeah, which was brilliant, and it was just great to, it was not restricted view.
Exactly, yes. So then the podcast will have to change next week now. But yeah, and also it's worth noting that this offer is only up until the performance on the end of this week, 6th of June. So it's literally basically go to the Mousetrap this week, and you'll get 50% off if you use that code. Tickets are still available for the performances at time of recording. Hopefully they will be. There'll be some. There will be some because we were at the theatre early and there were tickets still being sold at the box office. But when we returned, it said house full. So, but definitely, it's absolutely well worth it. Whodunit. Use that code. Go see Mousetrap
and find out who done it.
So on to the last section of this week's show. It is our Far Too Many Notes section. As promised, this is going to be a slight getting to know us section with our history with the theatre. So I suppose I'll just let's do a Q&A format. Deborah, what's your history with the theatre?
Ooh, what's my history of the theatre? Okay, so I grew up in Brazil, in the south of Brazil, in a city called Porto Alegre, and obviously the theatre is there, and we have there are theatre festivals. There are opportunities to go to the theatre, but I guess I just never took those opportunities. My parents didn't really go very much. I remember going to a few plays and a few shows, but not that many ever. I guess I would have gone, but when you're a child, you're kind of like a bit limited by where your parents take you and, by how your interests develop as well. But I do have good memories of going to the theatre in my hometown. But it was when I was in my late teens. Sorry about this. I'm sorry, Chris. But it was
Is this something I don't know?
No. Okay. It's just that it can be a little embarrassing, but I guess it isn't. I really started enjoying musical theatre through Glee.
Oh yeah.
Yes, I know, basic stuff, but there you go. And I got to know lots of songs because they did covers of so many famous songs, and from those songs I would then go and find other songs. Jonathan Groff took part in Glee.
And you start seeing presumably the original versions of those songs, right?
Yeah, exactly. In wanting to see the shows, wanting to know more about the shows, because often they were clever with their choices, obviously, because you can take musical theatre songs out of context, but they're obviously better in context. So it's nice to kind of go and find them. They also obviously just did, jukebox stuff. They did, I think Jonathan Groff does Bohemian Rhapsody in one of the episodes. But yeah, so it wasn't just the music, but also kind of getting to know certain musical theatre actors, which is quite interesting. Mm-hmm. And then I went to New York for the first time, and I saw my poor mother. I dragged her to 5 shows.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
In how many days?
With 2 weeks.
Okay, not too bad.
So
we've done worse than that.
Exactly. Yeah, it wasn't too bad, but also I was just like, I need to take this opportunity to see everything.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's when I saw Phantom. So Phantom was my first kind of big show on stage, and I fell in love. I just really loved it. After that, I came to live in London for a year to study English, and I, kind of just used all my spare money to go to the theatre all the time, and that's when I got to see a lot of different productions, and just really fell in love. I think more recently, we really got into plays. I think we mentioned that in the past episode. So it started with musical theatre, and musical theatre will always have such a special place in my heart. And, it's just like, why don't we just kind of burst into song in normal life? I don't know. But it has developed, I think. And that's kind of a bit of my story, my history with the theatre. What about you?
Well, I was brought to my first musical. It's kind of the opposite to you in a way. My parents were super into it, and they brought me to my first musical when I was 4, maybe. I think it was Joseph. I think it was Philip Schofield playing Joseph.
Oh my God! Really?
Yeah, I think so. I have one visual memory of seeing Joseph.
As a 4-year-old.
As a 4 or 5-year-old. I must ask my mother actually how old I was. But yeah, I've literally got one image, and it's incredible. I don't, you know how it's a very blurred image, but it's from, I'm sitting on either the circle or upper circle on the stage left side, and I've got a slightly angled photograph of slightly angled vision of the stage, and I remember there were flashing colours, I think, for the song, the colours. Oh yeah, so it's but that's my earliest theatre memory, and I grew up in Ireland, and there's not there apart from the touring productions that came to Dublin, and occasionally Cork, there wasn't great opportunity to see musical theatre, so my parents always brought us to the touring production. Of whatever was going, unless it was something they had absolutely no interest in, I suppose. So I mean, very young age, I saw Jesus Christ Superstar touring production. I saw the did I see Phantom touring production first? I can't remember. I saw Les Mis touring production, Miss Saigon. I remember being taken to, and then also we had family in England, and also my sisters ended up going to university in London, so we'd often end up going to London, particularly in my later childhood and early teen years. So we'd always go to 1 or 2 shows while we were over here. I remember seeing for The Woman in White, for example, the original. Well, I think I only had one production. We saw the original cast of that. What else did they?
Isn't that when you saw Lord of the Rings?
That was one time. Yeah, well, that was what actually happened the time I saw Lord of the Rings. Was my parents and my brother went to see The Sound of Music with, I can't remember her name now, that she won. It was the first talent show that Weber did. How Do You Solve a Problem Like Maria? What is her name? It's like on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, they went to see that with the winner of that reality show. And I like The Sound of Music, but maybe I was in that. It possibly was contributed by my age at the time. I was about 14 or so. Yeah. So I probably was like, "Oh, that's stupid." The Sound of Music. I like Sound of Music. I've seen the film plenty of times. I've still never seen the stage show. Would quite like to.
Yeah, I've never seen it either.
But they went to see that. But also, I think it was more the fact that we were whilst we were there, the Lord of the Rings was in Drury Lane. I was like, I want to see that. So I went to see Lord of the Rings whilst they went to see The Sound of Music the same night. So I went to see it by myself. Which was awesome.
Well, and I guess Sound of Music kind of felt that it was just going to be there for much longer than Lord of the Rings. I don't know if you thought about it.
I didn't think about that, I don't think, because we only came every year, right? And I don't even think I necessarily understood at that point
how it worked.
How some things, how things came and went, and how tours worked, and how productions worked. I don't know, but yeah. So we used to see things quite a lot. Every year we'd see one or two probably in the West End, at least one. And then we see all the lots of touring productions, and then I started. It gave me a great interest, and also then growing up, I was listening to soundtracks when everyone else was listening to the up and coming bands. I was listening to musical soundtracks, and then I started to develop an interest in music as a result. And also my sisters they both played the piano. One of them played the flute incredibly well. And then I started singing in choirs and all sorts. There was one choir which was hard to get into, which I got into, and it was like a remembrance choir for an opera singer who came from my hometown. That was a big achievement for me back then. And then I started performing in shows in my school. Then I started performing shows in societies outside of my school. And then I decided I wanted to study theatre, so I went to study theatre in university. Still did stuff on shows on the side, both within and out of the theatre at the university. There's a great dramatic society called DU Players. Saw lots of great shows there. Participated in a few. Wrote a really ridiculous adaptation of a comedy web series with a friend, which we put on literally just because we could. It was absolute trash, but we literally did it for ourselves, for nobody else.
Is that the one that you dressed in like red and
yeah?
yellow?
I wasn't in it, but yeah, that was red and blue.
Red and blue, okay.
But yeah, so and then after university, I did a very small amount of very badly paid various acting gigs, largely it's largely because I every so often would be called by someone who had done a show where she'd be like, "Oh, we need someone to do a voiceover for this campaign. Do you want to do it?" I was like, "Yes, one day's work, but get a bit of cash." And then kind of look, basically that's it. It's a really hard life. You really have to want it. And I don't think I wanted it enough. I don't think I was willing to put up with the hardships it causes. And ended up getting another job and kind of moving away from it, but never stopped going to the theatre. And I don't even know if it was ever what I really wanted or not. Maybe it was. I don't know. But I ended up not going into kind of acting in theatre full time at all. Ended up getting another job. Never stopped going to the theatre, as I said. But I'm glad to be doing this podcast now and having a chance to kind of I don't know if I could say that this gives me a chance to use my degree, but definitely to like I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I did do it because I think it gave me certain appreciation. Because I was definitely, as like you, I started musicals, and very limited experience with plays and other types of stagecraft. Yeah. When I started my degree, by the time I ended my degree, I had an appreciation for clowning, appreciation for no theatre from Japan. Yeah. So it definitely broadened my tastes a lot. And then I met Deborah, and our first date was actually to Matthew Broderick's Swan Lake. Yeah,
you took me to that.
It's a pretty good opening gambit.
It was good, yeah, wasn't it? Yeah, we were nearly late to that.
Were we?
Yeah, remember? I just remember running around Dublin trying to get to the theatre.
No, I don't think so.
We were a bit late.
We took a short cut through the university.
We did, yeah, because we were late.
Nah, we were fine. We were fine.
See, people remember things differently.
Yeah, it's weird.
And then I took you to once.
Yes, which I'd never even heard of.
Yeah, see, I
Phil
showed
Northern
you
musical.
things.
The Phil Northern musical, never heard of it, even though it's Irish.
Yeah.
Which I loved. It's absolutely fantastic.
It's a great show, yeah.
We have subsequently met Glenn Hansard as well.
Yeah, love Glenn Hansard. You will hear me, if you stick around, you'll hear me talk about once a lot, because I love it a lot.
Yeah, I love it too. It is fantastic.
Yeah, so that's we kind of bonded over theatre and also Doctor Who, but mainly theatre.
We're not as into Doctor Who these days.
Exactly, yeah, theatre survived.
But theatre survived.
Yeah, and we just kind of moved to London together and decided to make the most of it.
Yeah, basically, we were here. We started going to shows all the time, and then one year, I think it might have been 2016.
2016.
It must have been 2016. We were looking back on the year, and I was like, did you know we went to like 48 shows this year? And I was like, if we just done like 48 just off the top of my head, I was like, if we just done a few more, we'd have seen 52. We'd have seen one every week.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, well next year let's actually try and do that. So it didn't take much effort at all.
And we did that by October. We were done. We had done 52.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because like I said, because we'd almost done it by accident, so it really didn't take much effort. And who knows? In 2015 we might have nearly done it as well and just not noticed.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that kind of made us start going. We already started seeing plays because we were in London and we just started seeing things that we thought looked and sounded good. But I was at that point, because we wanted to go try and hit this number. We started being more kind of more open to seeing any old play, really. But like, we'll
more fringe stuff, kind of off West End stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what. And then we found out that even though I'd studied Pinter at university, for example, I'd never appreciated him the way I do now, having seen loads of Pinter plays. Now I love Pinter. You'd never seen a Tennessee Williams play, for example?
No, never. And I haven't even seen the film adaptations, which I will.
No, but now you love him.
I do.
So we ended up falling in love with all sorts of different plays and playwrights. And then in 2018, I think we saw like 75 shows in a year. We stopped counting, but we started going because we'd now opened these floodgates to be willing to see anything. We now wanted to see everything. Now we were starting to be like, oh my god, we didn't get to see that random play.
Weirdly as well, like you get good at just kind of finding cheap tickets.
We're so good at that.
We got really good at that, but also if you're willing to go to smaller theatres, they're often a lot more affordable as well. And what's a lot of fun, I think, is that when we started, at least speaking for myself, obviously, a lot of the time I was just like, oh, I want to see this famous actor in this play, and that kind of brought me to the play. That's the thing that made me go see the play. And now, because we got used to going so much, we kind of spotted actors who we like, who've never heard of before. And now we follow their careers.
Joshua Griffin now from the Mousetrap is now I'm a fan of his.
Or even Charlie Stemp, who we saw in Half a Sixpence, and we just think he's wonderful, and he's in Mary Poppins now. So yeah, it's just nice to follow these people who are not famous because they were in, Avengers movies. Yeah,
it's nice. It's nice to start recognizing people from other plays rather than from movies.
You feel really good about yourself. Like, I've seen this person before in another play, not in a film, not on TV.
Yeah, but hey, if you want to go see a play because a famous actor is in it, then that's cool. Go see it, and hopefully it will invigorate. Because I always say the sad thing isn't when people don't usually go to the theater, only go to theater to see a particular actor. The sad thing is when they don't come back after that.
Yeah, that's true. And then producers feel that they can only bring famous people to the theatre to get audiences. And I understand that how, I'm sure that's a whole discussion about, stunt casting and all that. But
it definitely goes. I'll never forget the woman who sat next to us during, you saw it twice, but the time we both saw Benedict Cumberbatch play Hamlet in the Barbican. She didn't come back for the second half.
Hey, and look, that was a good production.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
It was a good production.
Kieran Hines was also in it.
Yeah, it was, yeah. So yeah, I think that's a bit of a history with theatre. Unlike Chris, I did not study theatre at university. I studied psychology, and then I went on to literature, which is like my true love. And if any of you...
She does have a doctorate in literature, so she does understand how plots work.
Ish. But if any of you have studied literature, you'll know that we do kind of, borrow from the theatre a little bit and sometimes study plays as well. We cheat.
Yeah, well, for some reason, Shakespeare is not considered theatre.
No, but I studied Pinter.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, Homecoming.
Homecoming.
Yeah.
And also Doubt.
Oh, yes.
So I think it just depends on what the particular professor wants to explore, because plays are very helpful to explore narrative and the way points of view are constructed, like who's looking at the scene and all that stuff, all that good stuff. So it is used.
But I still want to make the point that in Pointless, for some reason, Shakespeare is under the literary category, not under the theatre category.
Does that bother you?
Yes, that bothers me. Even though I'm not a big Shakespeare fan, it's still weird that he's considered literature and not theatre.
Well, is it because maybe it'll have a lot more people in the world who will have read Shakespeare?
Yeah.
Because unlike other playwrights that people will most likely just see films or plays, of their works, Shakespeare, you'll most likely read it. Everyone in school here has to read it.
Yeah, I read Shakespeare, but I read Macbeth before I ever saw it. Although my school did take us to see it as well. Quite a decent little production too. But yeah, so that's kind of our history with it. And then we decided to make this we've been toying with the idea of doing a YouTube channel or a podcast for quite a while.
Or a blog. Does anyone have a blog anymore? I don't know. I think they do.
Yeah, people do blogs.
Yeah. Maybe we'll migrate one day.
But yeah, so I quite like this format because I quite like the ability just to have a chat with you, basically.
We basically decided that we were going to make something that we do normally a little bit more formal, because we do talk about the shows we see, and we do talk about our favorite musicals. We have a lot of theatre discussions in this house, and we just decided to record it. Yeah,
exactly, and I'm really glad we have done. And we felt that this with as I said, we were planning on doing it shortly before all this kicked off. Lockdown,
last year,
having put it off for a while, we were like, we'll do it now, and then theatres all closed. So we thought, well, this is the perfect time to do it, kind of welcome the theatre back, and we'll start our new relationship with the theatre with our podcast, hopefully making a lot of friends along the way and sharing our experience with you guys and hearing about your experiences, which we'd love to do.
Exactly.
So let us know your history of theatre.
How did you get here? How did you find us?
Yeah, that's a good one. How did you find us, actually? Because you have to, you must be big into theatre if not only do you go a lot, but you listen to a podcast on it.
Exactly, yeah. We're restricted.view on Instagram. Annoying, someone had taken restricted view. Isn't that really frustrating?
Yeah, I thought it was a really clever and original name, but I guess not.
Yeah, someone else is buying restricted view tickets, not just us.
But yeah, that's a little bit about us. If you're wondering maybe why we haven't necessarily said, and my favourite show is this, and my favourite is, we're that sort of thing we would like to talk about in dedicated sections in the future.
Yeah, we're milking it.
Yeah, exactly. We don't want to spoil our favourite theatrical experiences or anything, or our favourite musical of all time, because, we love making lists.
Yeah.
And
even though I think we've given some hints.
We've definitely given some hints.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's why we're possibly not talking about certain specific things. But if there's anything about us that you would like to know about our history of theatre that we didn't mention, that will not be a spoiler for an upcoming section on an episode, feel free to ask in the comments on the episode's photo on Instagram, and we'll happily answer. But yes, so I'm sure you'll learn more about us also throughout as the podcasts move forward.
Move forward.
But yes, that's a little bit about us and our history with the theatre.
So now it's time for us to wrap up, because we have to get ready to go to the theatre.
Yep, our second show in 2 days.
Yeah, how exciting is it to say this?
Yeah.
Super exciting.
Yeah, the best reason to end the podcast is to go to see a show.
So we can do another podcast and after.
Yeah, we can let you know what we thought of that show. We won't tell you what we're going to go see. I think we may have mentioned actually in the first episode.
Might have done.
But if you've forgotten, we won't tell you. We will hopefully have a review for it, though, in the next episode. Ooh,
yes, hope
exciting.
So. Okay, then. See you next time, guys.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, guys.
There's always a problem with podcasts. Are you watching? Are you listening? What are you doing?
See you next time, guys.
Bye.